Today's lesson is on classifying angles. First, we're going to look at our key idea. Two angles are complementary angles if the sum of their measures is 90 degrees. For example, 30 degrees plus 60 degrees equals 90 degrees, so these two angles would be complementary. Two angles are supplementary angles if the sum of their measures is 180 degrees. For example, 135 degrees plus 45 degrees would equal 180 degrees, so these two angles are supplementary. Now we'll look at example 1. We're classifying pairs of angles. Tell whether the angles are complementary, supplementary, or neither. For A, our two angles are 70 degrees and 110 degrees. If we add 70 degrees plus 110 degrees, we get 180 degrees. So the angles are supplementary. For B, our two angles are 41 degrees and 49 degrees. When we add 41 degrees plus 49 degrees, that equals 90 degrees. So the angles are complementary. And for C, our two angles are 128 degrees and 62 degrees. 128 degrees plus 62 degrees equals 190. So the angles are neither complementary nor supplementary. Now we have an additional example. You can pause the video and try it on your own, or you may follow along. Tell whether the angles are complementary, supplementary, or neither. For number 1, our two angles are 26 degrees plus 64 degrees. If we add 26 degrees plus 64 degrees, we get 90 degrees. So our angles are complementary. For number 2, our two angles are 44 degrees and 136 degrees. If we add 44 degrees plus 136 degrees, we get 180 degrees. So our angles are supplementary. And for number 3, our angles are 70 degrees and 19 degrees. If we add 70 degrees plus 19 degrees, we get 89 degrees. So our angles are neither complementary or supplementary. Now we're at another key idea. Two angles are congruent if they have the same measure. For example, the first two angles here would be congruent because they both equal 60 degrees, and these two angles both equal 120 degrees. Two angles are vertical angles if they are opposite angles formed by the intersection of two lines. Vertical angles are congruent. So if we look at this diagram, angles 1 and 3 are vertical angles and they are congruent. And angles 2 and 4 are vertical angles and they are congruent. For our second example, we're finding angle measures. We're going to find the value of x. The angles are vertical angles, so 70 degrees and x degrees are vertical angles. Because vertical angles are congruent, the angles have the same measure. So x is equal to 70 degrees. For B, the angles are complementary. So we know the sum of their measures is 90 degrees. If we know that one of the angles is 50 degrees, x plus 50 equals 90. And when we solve that equation, we would get that x equals 40. So our other angle is 40 degrees. Now we have an additional example. You can pause the video and try it on your own, or you may follow along. We're going to find the value of x. For number 4, our two angles that we have form 180 degrees, or they are supplementary. So we would take 180 and subtract 85, and we would get 95 degrees. So x would equal 95 degrees. For number 5, the angles that we have are vertical angles. We know that this angle here is 90 degrees, and x is a vertical angle. Vertical angles are equal, so this x is 90 degrees. And for number 6, our two angles equal 90 degrees. They are complementary. So we can take 90 degrees and subtract 69 degrees, and we would get 21 degrees. So x would be equal to 21 degrees. Don't forget to fill out your notes, and remember you can watch the video again if needed.